Good afternoon, pilot teachers, and good afternoon, students. Okay, thank you. Sit down. Okay, our lesson today will see us look at revision of work that we have covered so far on tectonic plate movements and the many features that are created as a result of the plate movements. So basically today we are going to look at revision work, and I'll be putting up some questions or activities for you to actually answer. And the pilot teachers plus the students from the other school, especially the pilot teachers, if you have any other information that you might want to actually use as part of the revision, you can go ahead to doing that also. So we look at our revision work now on what we have covered so far. You will be using the booklet Interactions in Physical Geography, and as well as that, the information that has been presented on the worksheet. The information presented on the worksheet is actually back-to-back. And if you look at the information back-to-back, there are some questions that are also asked, and that's what we will look at for our lesson today. Okay, revising now, and the information now that we need to look at for our revision work. We start off with information from the worksheet, of which you will find figure 1.23. And if you look at that particular figure, it gives us a position of Great Britain. And if you look at the position of Great Britain at the following years, starting from 380 million years ago to 300 million years to 250, 172, 50, and present. That's the position of Great Britain in terms of plate movements, and that particular country also shifting or moving. From your handout or from the worksheet, if you look at the information presented, it reads, because the various plates have moved from what we have studied already on tectonic plate movements, Britain has also been carried about on the globe as shown on figure 1.23, and that is the information on the monitor. It tells us there that many rocks which contain minute grains of a mineral which is called magnetite, that shows where North stood at the time they were formed. And it seems that the Earth's climatic zones have been or have remained in roughly the same place, and that a rock such as limestone made from tropical corals was actually laid down in the tropics and has been moved to its present position. If you look at figure 1.24, that is the table, and that table is similar to what we have looked at the beginning when we looked at the geological time scale. If you make reference to the table, you will see the first column basically gives us millions of years. The second column gives us information in terms of Earth movement. On the monitor, that is actually not presented, but from the worksheet you will find that information presented. Column 3 will show us the geological period, and column 4 will show us the conditions and rocks in Britain. We will need to make reference to that particular table for us to be able to answer the question. And the activity, or the first question now, reads, okay, we look at the activity as shown from our worksheet, and that activity should read, by comparing figure 1.23, or that information showing us the position or the location of Great Britain at the different times, with that geological timescale table, you're going to work out which rocks were being formed at each of the past positions of Britain. So if you go back to looking at that particular information as shown on our monitor, you will see the different years showing us the position of Great Britain at the different times as shown. And those years are shown in millions of years. So from 380 million to present. For each of those years as shown, you are going to actually compare with the geological time scale and then work out which rocks were being formed at each of the past positions of Great Britain. And you have 2 lots of information to look at for the completion of that task. That's the first activity. So if you can circle on your worksheet 21. The next activity that you are going to move on to completing will be, if you look at figure 1.6 now at the back of the worksheet. So activity 21 is the first activity you will work on. To the back of the worksheet, you now have figure 1.6, and figure 1.6 is showing us a view of the Earth from space. If you look at the information from your worksheet, it is black and white, and it might not be that clear for you to identify and name the continents and the oceans which can be seen from that particular photograph. You can make reference to the information from the monitor, which is in color, and from that particular photograph, see if you can name the continents and the oceans which can be seen. That is the second activity. So if you can circle figure 1.6 and the question which is under figure 1.6, that will be the second lot of activity for you to work on. Okay, the next activity will be now looking at the table figure 1.7. And that particular table gives us information on column 1 on the oceans, the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Southern Ocean, and the Arctic Ocean. And there is a space left blank there for you to fill in the percentage of the Earth's surface that the Pacific Ocean covers, the percentage of the Earth's surface that the Atlantic Ocean covers, similarly for the Indian Ocean, the Southern Ocean, and the Arctic Ocean. Okay, there is one more that we can also add, and that will be the other seas and gulf, of which you can also add to the bottom of the table from your worksheet. Then you'll have to work out the total of all of the oceans in terms of the percentage of the Earth's surface that the oceans generally covers. After you have done your percentage calculations, you come up with a total and you write down the total of all the Earth's surface covered by the oceans. You do the same for the continents. You have the Asian continent, the African continent, North America, South America, Europe, Antarctica, and Oceania. Then you calculate or you work out the percentage of the Earth's surface which is covered by the continents, and then you write the information in the space provided. Once you have got all the percentages, then you work out the total, and you should come up with the total percentage of the Earth's surface that is covered by all the continents. Okay, so that's the third activity you are going to work on. For you to be able to actually complete this activity, you will have to make reference to figure 1.7, which is given on the far left of the handout or the worksheet, or below figure 1.6. And that information should be able to help you work out the percentage for the oceans and the continents. On the monitor, that information is also presented in color, so you can make reference to that when I flash on or when we come to that particular question. Okay, that's not all. We are now on activity 3. Activity 4, we move on. For activity 4, you will see a map of New Zealand. So far, we have been looking at different type of plate movements, and here is an example of a fault, which is referred to as a tear fault, and it is one found in the South Island of New Zealand. If you look at the information, the red color on the monitor or the black color from your worksheets represent the rocks which have actually moved along this particular fault, referred to as the Alpine Fold. This is similar to the work we did on the St. Andreas Fault and the movement, looking at Los Angeles and San Francisco, when we're looking at where they would actually shift or move to if the continents are moving at the different rates or the plates are moving at the different rates. Similarly, you have an example now of the Alpine Fault. Figure 17. The question is, if you look at this particular map, it shows us the Alpine Fault in New Zealand. It is thought that the two masses of rock or the two masses of matching rock types were once a single mass, but they have actually shifted or moved as a result of plate movement along that particular fault line, which is known as the Alpine Fault line. Your task is to calculate by how far have the rocks moved. You have a scale given on that particular map, and you're going to use the scale to do your calculation. And the scale is given in linear form. Okay, and those then will be the 4 questions that you're going to work on for our revision work. Okay, we can start off now with the first one. And the first question is basically looking at the position of Great Britain, looking at the table, and then working out what type of rocks were being formed at each of the past positions of Great Britain. Okay, I'll have your attention because we're coming to the end of the lesson already now. What I will want you to actually do is to complete those revision questions for your homework, and we will go through the answers to those questions in our lesson tomorrow. So very quickly, checking now to see that you know which questions you're going to actually do for your homework. We are looking at the first information on the position of Great Britain over those years that are given from the monitor, and then for you to work out using the table which rocks were being formed at each of the past position of Britain. That's the first activity. The second activity, looking at the view of the Earth from space, can you name the continents and oceans which can be seen? So only those that can be seen. You're not going to make a list of all the oceans and continents. Activity 3, you have a table of which you are to complete the table by indicating the percentage of the Earth's surface for each of those oceans listed, as well as for each of the continents that are listed. You will need to use the information presented or given to help you identify and to work out the percentage for oceans and the continents. There is one more activity, and that is the one on the Alpine Fault, for you to calculate by how much the rock masses have actually moved. And you will need to use the key given on that particular map for the calculation of how much the rocks have moved. And those will be the 4 activities which I would want you to complete for your homework. Have the answers ready, and we will check on the answers in our lesson tomorrow. Okay, that will also bring us to the end of the lesson. Class, if you can now stand up. Okay, to the pilot teachers, our keyword for lesson 31 is geological time. Good afternoon, and thank you, students.